Good morning and welcome back to another edition of the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning. If you're watching us live, thanks for that. If you're listening to the smooth sounds of my baritone, heavily edited voice later on, appreciate that as well. Or if you're watching the video later, appreciate that. So we really just appreciate you participating and watching this show. Thanks for that. If you're watching the video, we do hope you're not driving. So don't do that on us. So lots to talk about this morning, all sorts of parish council goodness. It was an interesting meeting last night. But first, we just want to let you know we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. It's $5 a month. Please remember it's $5 a month. Not $5 an article, not $5 a week, $5 per month for full access to the website. Again, we are in print on Saturdays and Thursdays. It comes to your mail on Saturday. It's technically our Sunday edition. So let's jump into the weather. Oh, a reminder, these shows are free. You can find them at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast if you ever missed them. We also have our long form podcast there as well. We did our first football show yesterday. We couldn't get all the coaches together at one time for Livingston Parish. We couldn't even get all the 5A guys together at one time. So we went ahead, Rob and William did their interviews with those coaches, and then I sat down with both of them and sort of re-interviewed them for your benefit. We'll also have a lot of cuts from their audio interviews with them, as well as 2 3-minute videos just talking to them about a wrap-up. So be on the lookout for that. That show is already live that I did with Rob and William yesterday. It's at www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast if you're interested in about week 2, which continues tonight, of the Livingston Parish football scene. So let's get into your traffic. Heavy delays north on 16 in Watson by Live Oak High School, both north and south. Heavy delays on Hatchell and heavy delays on 16 in Denham Springs, in and around Denham Elementary, Denham Junior High, and Denham High School. Still some heavy delays on 447 north, heading southbound past Arnold Road, which is 1025. Tough break in there. Also some heavy traffic on Burgess and 190 coming into Walker, going towards 447. Not sure if that's some residential traffic or just people going to and from the high school. On I-12 westbound, heavy delays backed up to Juban, which is pretty normal. Some heavy delays on Juban Road itself, heading southbound towards I-12. There's also delays at 190 4H Club Road and River Road where they come together. No delays right now on 64 heading into Central, which is, I guess, good. Those delays on I-12 westbound heading into Baton Rouge will dissipate right around Sherwood Forest Boulevard. Minor delays after the 10-12 split. It's currently 74 degrees outside. 96 is your high. It's going to be another hot one. 0% chance of rain, but it is going to be sunny, so it's supposed to be a beautiful day out there today. So please take advantage of that. So let's start with the parish council. For those of you who might be watching the show and were there last night, I'm sure you noticed there was a lot of parliamentary procedure, a lot of things going on last night. We're going to try to take it somewhat in order. I'm going to pull out one piece first, which is the notice of consideration, which was rescinded last night. That is for the spring votes on the spring ballot. There was sort of a dirty secret that we're trying to confirm here, but what happened was the parish council chairman, Mr. Shane Mack, read aloud the notice of consideration of action on Thursday, October 10th, for 3 items that would be on the spring ballot. So there was a lot of confusion at first leading up to that. A lot of folks thought that these taxes were going to come up on October 10th. That is incorrect. What would happen if they had not rescinded it would be they would discuss these 3 items, which I'll tell you what they are in a minute. They're all tax renewals. And then they would discuss with Mr. Jim Ryan, who is the governmental finance guru in the area, I guess you could say, about getting them on the spring ballot. So you have to discuss them ahead of time and approve them as a governing body for a vote later on in the year. So you can't, and there's a deadline for that. So you can't, for instance, discuss something on October 10th and approve it and throw it on the fall ballot. It doesn't work that way. Those are locked in usually for the fall ballot by qualifying, and for the spring ballot, I believe the deadline is in January. So, but please don't hold me to that deadline. But however, so what's interesting is this is the library millage, which is 10 mills. It's the 5 mills for roads, and it is the 1 cent sales tax. 25% of that 1 cent goes towards the detention center. 75% goes towards the road program. Now, you might remember Mr. Frog Talbert said on the morning show, he let it go on the morning show. He also said it on the podcast that he would not support the road program in its current state. But, at first it did seem like that's a lot of the reason why this happened. So Jeff Ard, why the rescinding happened. Jeff Ard made the motion at first, which did not work because Mr. Mack had already read everything on here. So he wanted to strike the item from the agenda. Mack had already read it, so you can't do that. So he rescinded it. That parliamentary procedure there is very interesting, going back and forth. That rescinding action was seconded by Mr. Girlinghouse, and before comments could be made, Mr. Talbert called for the question, which in Robert's Rules of Order means he's asking for the vote. The reason it's called call for the question, as you may remember, and we'll talk about the amendments later, it always asks, do you support? So it used to be in parliamentary procedure that you would ask the question of, do you support or do you deny? However, based on that motion that was made. Now it's just motion second, yes or no. But the old statement is call for the question. Mr. Mack did make some comments. He kind of waved his gavel around a lot. It was very interesting. But in the end, they voted 7-2. Mack was was one of the no votes. John Wascom was the other no vote to rescind those items. Now, we're trying to confirm that this is true because I was there. I do not remember hearing it out loud, and neither do 5 council people that I've talked to. But there were people that had confirmed they had talked to the chairman, Mr. Mack, ahead of time, that he had intended to rededicate or wanted to discuss rededicating, because you can't just rededicate a tax. I mean, it has to be agreed upon by the council and then probably voted on. But he wanted to discuss rededicating a portion of the library tax, which is 10 mills again. He wanted 3 mills for his district for drainage. Now, a couple of interesting things there. One, you can understand where Mr. Mack's coming from. His district, most homes in his district, or most pieces of real estate, homestead out of property tax. So that's an automatic problem. There's not a big sales tax base either. The district to the south of him, which is causing trouble for Gravity Drainage 5 at the moment, also has the same problem. Roughly 80% of homes in that area will homestead out of property taxes, and there is no sales tax base there. So both of those districts are struggling. No one wanted to talk about that last night. Nobody, especially with the fact that many people, including Mr. Talbert, who said on the show, don't really want to talk about the road program right now either. So that was rescinded. Mr. Mack did get frustrated. He left the meeting at that point. I'm not sure if he left or just went out in the hallway, but he was very fired up. He was very upset. We're trying to get in touch with him this morning to confirm that was indeed his intent to discuss that. It seems to be everyone that I have talked to has said that is the case. About 6 or 7 people who had talked to him ahead of time and asked him not to do it. So that's a lot on that issue, but it will be interesting. There is plenty of time if they choose to get all of those renewals back on the ballot for the spring. However, several of the councilmen, including Mr. Talbert, as well as Mr. Girlinghouse and Mr. Ard, have discussed the fact that they do want to try to move at least the road tax to the fall, because it historically has a better turnout. And not only that, it is a presidential election. So just for comparison's sake, the last presidential election here had about an 84% turnout. The last spring election for mosquito abatement had a 13% turnout. And that's not 13% parish-wide. That was 13% of registered voters in the districts where mosquito abatement was voted on. So when you're talking about something like the road program, which is parish-wide, you're looking for that heavy vote. You're looking for that that 83-84% you get with a presidential election in the fall. Now, that does leave them very little time for a crossover. That tax will end in 2021, so they'd have to get it real quick on the spring ballot. However, Mr. Talbert did say that, those spring ballots now are trying to get taxes on off ballots are tough. The way social media is, in past, historically, you tried to sneak those votes in, sneak those taxes in on the spring ballot because you get a bunch of people to go out and support. Now, with the way social media is, you mostly get the no votes. You don't get the yes votes. So they're, trying to get rid of that or move those renewals up to the fall. Will be interesting to see. So, at any rate, the property tax for the library is not up until 2024. So that was another reason why a lot of people were like, why is this on the agenda? So that was the last piece of that. I do apologize. I'm still having some allergy trouble. At any rate, so that issue that'll come back up, because if they want to try to get on the spring ballot, it'll keep coming back up. And I'm sure, especially after election, there will be more discussion on that. So plenty going on there. Quite a bit of parliamentary procedure tossed around, as I said. So it will be interesting to see what comes up later. So, excuse me. The council did, in fact, accept Parish President Leighton Ricks's veto of the grinder pump ordinance. They had not received the language of the new ordinance. Parish Council Attorney Chris Moody had not sent that out yet, but they went ahead and skipped that piece of the puzzle. They will introduce it next time after they've had a chance to read it and make any changes if they want. The $4.5 million revenue refunding bonds, this was actually a refinance of the bonds. This is not the initial outlay that they're trying to use to expand the sewer district. This would save about $300,000 on a refinance. There was a lot of discussion surrounding Ward 2 Water. As you may or may not know, Ward 2 Water purchased the Port Vincent water well back in March. And in doing so, now they're trying to expand the boundary to encompass Port Vincent. That was approved unanimously, that expansion. Now, there was a lot of discussion around John Wascom's proposal to expand the board. Currently, the board has 5 members. Its biggest service areas are Mr. Talbert's district and Mr. Keene's district, followed by Mr. Girlinghouse's district. So it serves customers throughout 7 of 9 parish council districts. Mr. Lobel, which is District 8, and Mr. Mack in District 9 have no customers for Water District 2. However, Gary Frog Talbert, there it is, controls most of the appointments for the board. Mr. Wascom last night accused him of trying to protect his appointments and saying that other people who had customers should have appointments to that board. Now, what's interesting is he did produce a piece of state law that said if a water company or utility provider with a board should encompass a municipality or touch part of a municipality, then that municipality should have representation on that board, and the board should be expanded to a certain number of people. In this case, he threw out the number of, I believe it was 8, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You have to have an odd number. We're looking for that piece of law this morning. However, it did say that you have to expand the board. Now, Talbert then said, why are we even doing this? Why are we asking the legislature to expand it? Because it will take up someone's allotment of bills for next spring if they do propose that. State law already exists that says if they do take in Port Vincent totally, which they will have to expand that board. So it looks like they're going to expand the board, whether Frog wants to or doesn't want to, or John Wascom wants to. It really doesn't matter. By state law, they have to. I think at this point, it'll be interesting to see if anyone will sponsor that bill, especially considering there's already state law on the books. So time will tell on that one. But Ward 2 Water was expanded down to Port Vincent. They'll be making those moves in the coming months, I'm sure, to begin servicing that area. They are intending to bring on about 400 new customers because of that expansion. The interesting thing about Mr. Keene and his commercial permit consequences, if you fraudulently acquire a commercial permit, he handed that off to Parish President Leighton Ricks because Ricks asked him for it, and they wanted to change some language, provide some clarification, try to protect the parish a little bit more, just in case they were wrong in declaring someone had fraudulently acquired a permit. That language was not ready as of this meeting, so Mr. Keene deferred again for 2 more weeks that piece of the puzzle. So there was also an executive session last night. They talked about the I-12 barrier wall and where that lawsuit is. Not really anywhere, so that nothing really to update or change on that one. So that was a lot. Okay, that was my word. That was 14 minutes of parish council. So that was fun. Before the parish council started, they had what's called Board of Review. So if you're watching, this is what Board of Review looks like. It's an update on the property tax rolls in the parish. So every year, for a certain amount of months, the parish assessor's office has what's called an open book period. That is where individual citizens can come in, see what their tax, you can always check it online, but you can read in the book, it's now on computer, what your assessed value is, and you can contest that this year. And then at which point, when the books close at the end of August, the assessor then prepares the report and comes to the parish council. The parish council then has to accept the rolls, submit them to the tax commission. There were no appeals this year, which I think a lot of parish councilmen were happy about because there was no discussion. Some interesting points of note: 814 million. Okay, that is the amount of assessed property in Livingston Parish. $814 million worth of property in Livingston Parish. 243 million of that is homestead. So the parish itself on property taxes has a base of $571 million is the tax base for property taxes in Livingston Parish. A couple of things to note, especially considering some of the comments that were made on the story last night. So the assessor does collect a millage to run his operation. He does not create taxes. He just assesses your property. He did also say at the meeting that if you have a problem with your property tax, you may call his office or come to his new office building, which is in front of the courthouse. It's named after his father, Delmas. They'll be having a grand opening ceremony on Friday, September 27th at 10 a.m. But again, those numbers are $114 million of assessed property value in Livingston Parish, $243 million worth of homestead exemption, which we talked about earlier. That's a problem in Mr. Mack's district. So $571 million is the total parish-wide property tax value or taxable value of property. So there's that information this morning. There was a fatality on I-12 yesterday heading westbound right at the EBR line. Happened at about 1:30 p.m. Still waiting for some details on the name of the victim and those sorts of things. They always want to contact the family first before they give that to us. I do understand that. We're also waiting for the name of a 14-year-old from Springfield High School who brought a gun to school, got in trouble, was removed from school, and is in the Florida Parish's detention center, which is the juvenile detention center for the area. You do pay a property tax on that. Will be interesting to see how that turns out when they send the name. When I suppose you could say that when the sheriff sends the names to us, they also worked with Springfield Police Department. We have a story online. It's called Changing Language. It is about your 4 amendments for the fall ballot. You actually will only be voting on 3. One affects New Orleans Parish only. They are looking to make property more available and more affordable for people. Currently, they pay 194 mills in Orleans Parish on property. So anything with 25 housing units or less could be subject to this if those folks voted in. The rest of them are charter schools and lab schools are looking for a piece of the pie of the Millennium Fund, which is tobacco payments from the big tobacco settlement back in the late 90s. They're looking for about $75,000 for excuse me. It's about $75,000 for a charter school plus a per pupil allotment, and then for lab schools, which is like High, they're looking for a per pupil allotment. So that will be on your ballot. Also on your ballot will be the Board of Tax Appeals. Usually, if you appeal your tax as unconstitutional, it goes to the court. This is giving the Board of Tax Appeals the ability to hear your case and try it themselves. Will be interesting to see how that plays out. They're trying to keep this stuff from bogging down the court system because you go to the state court system. The last one will be property taxes levied on items, machinery, personal goods that are going out to oil rigs, which are anything that's up to 3 miles offshore. Currently, any items going overseas are exempt from property taxes. In this case, if you have a piece of machinery on a rig, you bring it back to the mainland to repair it and then send it back, you had to pay property taxes on it while it was here. So they're trying to exempt those oil companies from those property taxes when those pieces of machinery don't normally sit here and operate. So those are the four. Keep an eye out for those on the ballot. Again, that story is called Changing Language. You can find it at www.livingstonparishnews.com /news. Please check that out. So, again, a reminder that tonight is football. It's football night in America, I guess you can say. Or football night here in Livingston Parish. We do have a show. It's at www.livingstonparishnews.com /podcast. You can check that out. I sat down with William and Rob, and we talked about everything that was that happened last week and what the teams are doing to prepare for this week. Live Oak will be playing Woodlawn at home after beating Ponchatoula 35-14. Big complete game effort there. Denham's looking to keep it simple as they travel to Ponchatoula this week. I'm trying to rebuild that offense from the ground up. Walker will host Destrehan and an Alabama commit running back, so they'll have to play tough. They're going to have their work cut out for them. They did respond to a late Madison prep surge last week, so Coach Mahaffey liked their growth. Springfield's just looking to finally put it all together. They've been looking for a running back, looking for a quarterback. Well, it looks like they might have found those pieces. They played Cohen this week at home. And then Albany's looking to kind of bounce back after a marathon run last week. They will be playing St. Michael, one of two 4A contests they have this year. They're a 3A. They'll be playing St. Michael at Olympia Stadium. So it was about almost a 4-hour game last Friday. So they'll be looking to try to bounce back from that. There's a lot. That'll make you tired. Last but certainly not least, Southeastern has launched their collegiate recovery program, which is a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program for students to try to help them focus on academics. This is officially recognized by the Association of Recovery and Higher Education, and it is the only recovery program in Louisiana of its type. So congratulations to Southeastern. So I have talked a lot. Let us roll back around to your traffic. It is starting to dissipate in Denham Springs and in Watson. Now you have heavy delays backed up. Not as bad. It's only to about Pete's Highway. It looks like things are starting to clear up. It's a relatively easy Friday. However, heavy delays on I-12 westbound now past the 10-12 split. Small delays on 64 heading into Central. Heavy delays still on 447 north at Arnold Road, so you're going to have to deal with those. Minor delays at 190 4H Club Road and River Road in Denham Springs. Remember, it's going to be 96 degrees today. It's going to be hot. 0% chance of rain. Currently 73 degrees. It should be a beautiful day, very sunny. Again, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. This is Friday morning show. We appreciate you joining us this morning. If you watch this on Facebook Live, thank you for that. If you listen to it later or watch the video later, we appreciate that too. Remember, you can always catch up on these shows and our podcast at www.livingstonparishnews.com /podcast. They are there. They are free. Otherwise, we're $5 online. We're in print on Thursdays and Saturdays. That $5 online at www.livingstonparishnews.com. It gives you full access to the site. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. You can check us out there. So again, we appreciate you joining us this morning. Thank you again. We are checking out for the weekend. please keep an eye on on our Twitter and on our Facebook for updates for these 5 football games as we spread the crew around in Livingston Parish. Have a great Friday. Hope you have a great weekend.